Some fragrances carry a label that follows them everywhere. Clone, copy, imitation. Lattafa Asad has worn that label since it hit the market. But wearing it told a different story. And the moment I realized that, everything about this scent shifted. And we'll prove it inside the Raider Report. Let's break it down. Hey Raiders, I'm Turk. And today we're looking at a fragrance that surprised me in a way I didn't expect. A scent that takes the intensity and mass appeal of Dior Sauvage Elixir's DNA and reshapes it into something smoother, deeper, and more approachable. In today's video, you're getting a note breakdown, the Raider Report, and a clean verdict based on my experience. I ended up buying Lattafa Asad at the same time I bought Armaf's The Pride, back when I was just trying to understand the Sauvage world. I wasn't hunting for clones, I wasn't chasing hype, I just wanted to get a feel for the DNA without dropping designer money. The Pride, it hit me like a brick. Sharp, metallic, aggressive. One where I shelved it for good. And because of that experience, I assumed Asad would be the same story. Loud, synthetic, trying too hard. But that's not what happened. What I got instead was a kind of warm density. A slow, steady presence that didn't feel like a copy. It felt like a reinterpretation. It was like finding a different shade of the same color. And the more I wore it, the less it felt copied. It felt considered. Asad doesn't try to match Elixir's intensity. It takes the same direction and reshapes it into something rounder, smoother, and more wearable. And there's one detail about this scent shift on my skin that caught me off guard. But we'll get to that in the Raider Report. But right now, let's get into the scent. The opening comes in warm and spiced. Black pepper cracking open that first spark, pineapple giving a bright and fresh lift, and the tobacco leaf adding a darker textured shadow underneath. It's not sharp or metallic. It rises slowly, like heat gathering just beneath the skin. As it moves into the heart, Asad thickens. Patchouli adds a depth and weight. But here's what I noticed. The coffee note never goes bitter. On most fragrances in this lane, it usually does. In Asad, it brings a roasted tone that adds a subtle radiance without adding smoke. And the iris softens the edges, giving that radiance a smooth, rounded shape. And this is where Asad steps into its own lane. Deep, steady, and unmistakably itself. And then the base settles in. The vanilla smoothing everything out. Amber glowing resinous and rich, and a soft wood grain keeping that sweetness controlled. It dries down calm, grounded, and quietly confident. That shifting warmth, it's the key of how Asad performs, and we're about to test it. Alright Raiders, labels aside, this is where we look at Asad for what it is, not the story around it, the performance on the skin. Here's the Raider Report for Lattafa Asad. On my skin, I get a persistent 8 to 10 hours, and it hangs on clothes even longer. It maintains its presence the whole way. It keeps that slow burn tone close to the skin, and it stays consistent from the first spray to the last whisper. You get a noticeable push in that first hour. It steps forward without shouting. Then it settles into a glowing arm-length aura, holding itself in a tighter, more intentional space, and it carries itself with that quiet, controlled presence. It mainly shines in cooler weather and evening settings, but it adjusts better than you'd expect. And with a light hand, it can handle warmer days without feeling overly heavy. Never feeling forced or out of place, and it settles naturally into moments that just make sense. It is easily one of the strongest and most affordable buys in the warm spice lane. It feels rooted in what actually matters. It gives you that elixir-leaning presence, but in a smoother, more wearable way. And it brings a depth that makes it feel like a thoughtful choice, and ends up being one you don't second guess. That shifting warmth from earlier, this is where it shows up, and it's the reason Asad performs without ever feeling heavy. But here's what the numbers don't capture. The moment this scent steps into its own character, that's where we're going next. If you're into fragrances that carve out their own lane, go ahead and subscribe. That's the kind of storytelling we're building around here. I'll be honest, I didn't expect Asad to feel this mature. I thought it would be over the top, too loud, and built for a younger man. But wearing it again and again, I realized something. Asad and Elixir start out on the same path. They walk side by side for a while, sharing direction, structure, and early steps. But eventually that path splits, and when it does, Asad stops following and starts charting its own course. You can't judge Asad by what you think it should be. You have to judge it by what it is. A textured, multi-layered scent with its own personality. And here's the part that surprised me the most. The more I wore it, the less I thought about Elixir at all. The comparisons paled, the expectations faded, and what was left was a scent that had stepped into its own trail, warmer, smoother, more grounded. There's a certain calmness in the way it moves. Steady, deliberate, sure of itself. It doesn't try to impress from across the room. It makes an impression the moment someone steps close enough to meet you. And that's where interpretation becomes identity. When a fragrance stops being a reflection and starts growing into its own character. The same way people do when they stop imitating and start creating. In their own lane and in their own way. Some fragrances are loud. Some are sharp. Asad is certain. If Elixir is the benchmark, Asad is the smarter play at 16% of that benchmark price. Sauvage Elixir runs about $165 to $200 for 60 milliliters. Lattafa Asad is under $30 for 100. The DNA is close enough that most people in your orbit won't know the difference, but you'll feel it in your wallet and how often you actually reach for it because of that savings. If you're building a rotation and want that warm spice, Elixir adjacent lane covered without the designer cost, Asad is the call. So Raiders, that label it walked in with, clone, copy, imitation, it doesn't fit Asad anymore. Not after you actually wear it. It isn't a copy. It never was. It's a reinterpretation. And reinterpretations, when done right, don't borrow identity. They build their own. Do me a favor. Drop a comment with your opinion. Like and subscribe for the next one. Raid smart. Smell better.